Ndiilo. I go by the pronouns Chive, and I'm a gender non-conforming lesbian gender activist.
When did you know that you would rather be gender non-conforming than any of this heterosexual?
Yeah, I think it's not like, or rather I think it's there are gradations, right, to coming to that, or to really fully living how you are, right? Because gender is always with you, whether it's non-conforming, transgender, etc. You always understand yourself more deeply in that sense. And that's really when you are also exposed to so many things, and you are faced by so many things, and you also experience so many things, social settings, and when you integrate yourself into different institutions and people as well, is that you begin to come into how you are philosophically, intellectually, and psychologically, emotionally too. And so there are definitely gradations to that part where you experience who you are and claim and believe who you are. But everyone's journey is different, Mine took much longer. So maybe I think it was around after high school, but it's always been with me.
Yeah. So what does gender non-conforming actually mean to a layman's person who doesn't know anything about the community? How would you describe that?
You don't subscribe to any of the different gender stereotyping or boxes. Not to even say stereotyping, because there are also people that are gender conforming, but they also do not subscribe to the same stereotyping or the boxes, etc. So you are basically other than women, men, transgender, etc. You are other, and through that otherness you experience a different world for yourself, in which you assimilate, and you also perhaps unpack where exactly you fit and how you can fit into a society already heteronormative laden.
When you finally discovered and came into your full self, let's say, who was the first person you told?
No one. I've never had a coming out moment of, guys, this is me now, and this is no, because it's always been just with me so deeply and so strongly that I actually informed myself. I spoke to myself about where I'm going, how I feel, especially with the different many books that I've been reading. So that's just how I began to take more ownership of this identity and understanding what it is for me. So I didn't tell anyone. I think it's just more that I began to make my own transformations.
And then people just saw and they're like accepting.
Yeah.
How accepting are your family and friends and just community, whoever you're around? How accepting are they of you?
I think they're all very accepting, and they've always been accepting. They've always known, just like I've known, that I'm other in a sense. So they've been accepting. Friends have been so much more open, and I've not experienced any kind of resistance, especially within family. It's because I've always been so radical, so outspoken, so confrontational, to an extent that you can't really address me or demean or delegitimize who I am, because that is how they've known me all my life. So coming into my space is when I now maybe decide I'm talking about a girl that I like in front of my family, and the implications of what that looks like is that it's always been very, very wholesome, in that they're like, okay, now tell us about this girl, and more, instead of, what girl do you mean? Are you
what
not,
do you mean?
It's only when maybe we are with family and other friends, families and stuff, that they don't even understand how everyone can be so, laxed about just this girl in the family that is so open and so outspoken about just what they do with their lives.
How has your journey been since you finally stepped into and you finally started identifying and you've been living your truth, let's say? How's your journey been?
I think the journey hasn't ended, because every day it's something different, it's something new. It's a very exciting, it's very deeply meditative, philosophical, intense sometimes. Sometimes it's very light, playful, and especially when you are with friends surrounded by feminist, friends, feminist thinking friends, feminist embodying friends from all different genders, that you begin to experience a level of safety. And I say this also from a space of privilege, but because this is my journey, is that you begin to experience this from a level of safety and just gentleness that gives you the permission to just continue feeling safe and being who you are. So the journey definitely is in variations. You could be in a meeting, or I could be in a meeting with some stakeholders, etc. The way I present, the way I speak, I'm always aware of how already I'm presented and perceived. But at the same time, it's because I've already had the foundation that's made me feel secure about who I am. I don't necessarily feel threatened.
Yeah. People have come to you with their different mental health battles, and you've probably had your own with now the experience. How is that like? What has been one of the, let's say, the worst that you've experienced? You know, one of, like, mentally, something that really broke you, or might have broken you, or might have broken somebody that you have spoken to.
I can't think of any for myself, because, as I mentioned, that it's always been the foundation for that I've experienced. I think it's just that because I had so much security within my identity, people around me who do not have, or did not have the same level of access to, safe spaces and self-esteem, is that I've definitely been at the receiving end of just their victimization. And also me having to come back to how grateful I feel that I'm not where they are, but I recognize that this is a prevalent issue in the community, that are disproportionately also affected by a lot of mental health issues, as it ties into the conditions of bullying and intimidation and oppression that they constantly experience. So it's definitely then me using my privilege, my space, to try as much as possible to alleviate these issues by linking them to service providers, someone else that they can speak to, and really just trying to also understand where they are coming from, right? So yeah, it's like that.
Okay, you mentioned that you read a lot and that helped you. From the top of your head, can you think of any books that somebody who's trying to learn, trying to understand, trying to unlearn can read that would be very helpful?
Okay, I can think of a number of books. The one that comes to mind now is Feminism Is, and it is a sort of compilation of many essays from South African women and also beyond, on women and gender diverse persons, on what feminism is, right? Because it doesn't have one specific template. And as we know, the feminism should be intersectional, otherwise you deliberately exclude and erase a group of people that can also exist within their own definitions and templates of feminism. As we know that with language is the most powerful function of behavior transformation and concept importation. Now, if I'm importing concepts from a specific book that tells me that I do not belong because of this very narrow, myopic definition, what it does then is again conform to the already existing stereotypes that is, pandered into misogyny and all of that. So that book is Feminism Is. The other one is the first book, feminist book I read by a feminist author rather, is by Mampele Ramapele. She's a renowned author, yes, but a medical doctor also. And she was really also, she wrote this book during the time, or maybe reflections of the book during the time of the apartheid administration. And at the time she was also an activist, right? And there was already so many markers of defiance that she just did not conform to, because she felt that why must women only go and sort teaching jobs? And what was the other one? Teaching and nursing, yes. She wanted to be a doctor. She was an activist alongside Steve Biko, etc. And for me, when I read that book, I was about maybe 17, I think, and coming into 17, 18, and I was coming really into myself, really coming into these feminist concepts. And I think that's where I began to become more more radical in my approaches, and just with myself also, as hence me saying that it was only perhaps after high school that I really came into myself. So that book was really one of the most impressive and influential books that I've read. And then another one, Run Racist Run, by author Eusebius McKaiser, and he is definitely from the community, but he definitely has intersectional politics that he addresses: race, gender, and politics, right? And how all of them really are intersectional once again, and how it's important to always carry that lens that is inclusive. And it's one of the most radical books I've also read just during that time that I was now still coming out of high school, etc. That has influenced the way that I engage in politics, with my own identity politics, and yeah, basically everything else.
What can heterosexual people do to make sure that the world is safer for people of the community? Make sure that it is more accepting and make people of the community just feel more comfortable?
I think there are a number of things that so many people around the world are doing, right? But what I don't see people doing is really actively creating the positions that would empower people more. Because, and I keep saying, there's this saying that says, your name is being mentioned in rooms that people that you don't even know. And I keep saying, no, don't mention my name in rooms when it doesn't come to compensation. When the empowerment is very delusional, almost ambiguous, you know. So when my name is mentioned in a room that I've not walked into yet, what exactly are they saying? Are they deliberately, you know, erasing or ignoring the fact that I'm gender non-binary, that I need to be compensated, that I have this level of value and skills and competence, and that I need to be empowered in order for my name in the specific room to actually matter, even when I'm not there? So I come back to that conversation because it's very, it's something that they should actually actively do to institutionalize empowerment and not empower me with speeches and, you know, just my name being mentioned.
Allyship. How can a person be a better ally?
I think you become a better ally when you begin to use more empathy, to not center yourself. You know, don't center your issues, don't center. Actually, it's empathy that really is the most powerful form of uniting and bringing this level of allyship, for you to constantly understand that you are in positions of power and privilege, and that you need to constantly decenter yourself and decenter and dismantle around you wherever you can those same stereotypes that are especially the ones that persist and continue to hold a community of people back. So even in conversations in social settings with allyship, when you hear something problematic, you address it that moment and it's done, you know. And it doesn't have to become a whole thing. Sometimes it does, but at least you as an ally know that you come from this value and principle of constantly not entertaining problematic behavior even around you.
And
so
defending.
It's different for many people. You take up the spaces from the way you are, but knowing that you have to do the allyship often as a continuous active, you know, activity, because you know that daily community members face a lot of hardship and also resistance.
And what advice would you give to somebody who is confused, trying to find themselves, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know where to go, they don't know what safe spaces exist? What advice would you give?
You see a therapist. I would say, you know, it's very different, you know. You take up many different spaces based on your privilege, class, and I can speak from a position of privilege and say, maybe see a psychological counselor that can give more input in where you see yourself, because most of this is really emotional and psychological, and they can, you know, provide the info that you need on your journey. And we do know that there are there are institutions that provide mental health services, and they do not charge, especially with the state hospitals. But even with that, when you don't have access, you really need to, it's a lot of things, guys, you really need to understand that you can't feel safe when the people around you are not giving you that space to feel safe, and especially when they don't understand what you're going through. But it's important that you first understand, right? And if it's about a specific issue, I think a lot of research is important, and any research is important, whether you're going on Google, on Twitter, on Facebook, you know, something that you feel, you know, aligns with the answers that you need. We have a lot of resources, especially at the Legal Assistance Center. You can go into their website and really look at what they say around LGBTQ plus communities, or sexual, gender and sex minorities. And you could also reach out to someone that you feel maybe has been brave in a space, and just say, hi, I need advice on this. I don't mean to interrupt and stuff, but just want to know a few things on the specific issues. And I think it's important because we shouldn't really also adopt the same culture of distance that most of our forebears have always been known to be, you know. And it's especially when you look at access to different government institutions and politicians, government heads and stuff, is that there's this huge gap on what this person does and how they can assist me versus how I can access them. And then that informing now the way that I seek resources, right? So it's very intertwined, and everyone's journey is very, very different. But how you can and where you can, I think it's important that you try, you know, what you can. Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Well, yeah. The one is, you know, you can't have equality without safety. It's almost, there's this thing that I've always been meditating on, saying equality without safety is like digging water wells and forgetting to put distribution points. And so adolescent girls, young women and gender diverse persons need access to this water. They need the safety.
Yeah.
It's not enough that you say we are going to create equal spaces when people don't feel safe, right? Because how do I experience that safety or that equality when I'm constantly threatened, my security, my life? And so it's important that as we dismantle these oppressive structures of inequality, that safety is really a lens that is incorporated in order to make sure that the two are easily accessible and experienced. And that's my final closing words.
All right. Thank you so much, Ndiilo. Do you want to maybe plug your socials if there's something that you want people to see?
Yeah, so my social media is, Twitter is Ndiilo_Ntengwe. Facebook is Ndiilo Kelwa NMTengwe. LinkedIn is Ndiilo Kelwa NMTengwe. And Instagram is Ndiilo_N.
Are you open to, if somebody wants to talk to you and wants to advise, are you open to that? Are you a safe space for people?
I would say that there are safe spaces people can go to and be referred to in order to really get the maximum amount of resources that they need. I'm one resource, right?
Yeah.
And I have extremely busy scheduling in between just being one resource.
Yeah.
But now there are institutions that have many resources, and that's where they can really experience that ultimate form of safety.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.